Silence, quiet. It's about 7 o'clock and we'd like to get started for the people who are also on Zoom. I'm Joe Pica and I've been heading up the team that SPC has had working on Coolspring Crossing now for, I think 2 years we've been working on this. It does seem like forever. And we appreciate very much your being here this evening. We know it's wonderful weather out there and you would have loved to have cavorted around your yard for a while and done something else, walked in the neighborhood. But thanks very much for being here tonight. We may be few, but we're mighty, right? Coming up next week is the showdown meeting on Coolspring. And we wanted to give you a sense of what the problem is, kind of remind you about some of the details of it, and then make an appeal for getting you to do some writing, perhaps actually show up on the day of the hearing, which would be very helpful. And I'll explain some of the details about why that would be helpful. So in part, this is a substantive discussion this evening to kind of remind you about what this is all about, but also a little bit of guidance, suggestion, and appeal to get you going. We've had so many of these major issues recently that we decided to kind of let the other two major issues, Belle Meade and Atlantic Fields, kind of play out on Route 24, as opposed to trying to arouse enormous energy and enthusiasm and concern about Coolspring Crossing at the same time. There's only so much bandwidth that people who are engaged in these issues can deal with, I think, at any time. And so we're a little bit late, perhaps, in terms of the timeline, but I think that a lot of this should be familiar territory. So just to remind you, this is it. That big empty field there is part of the 637 acres. And obviously, when you look at that, you realize that's urban, that's not rural. That's what we said when their attorney made that argument. And that is the foundation of his argument, that this area has changed and therefore it should now be part of the growth area of the county, what's called the coastal area, which is the area that runs down along the coast from Lewis through Rehoboth and then southward all the way to Fenwick Island, is a growth area in the county. And the attorney, Fuqua, has argued that this has now changed fundamentally and should be included as part of the growth area. We have argued, and we will argue on Tuesday, that it should still be a low density area, not a growth area. And it has been agricultural residential. It has been forested and farmed. We are not arguing that it will always remain that way. We are not arguing that it should never be developed. We are arguing that now is not the time to make the decision about the future of that piece of land, which is in a strategic location in the county. It's in a very critical location on the Route 9 corridor. The state has agreed with us in the sense that, well, perhaps we're following the state's lead. 4 times the state has rejected the request that this land be put into the growth area and treated differently from what it has been. So in 2018, the last time that the county went through a comprehensive plan, which then, as part of the comprehensive plan, produced a future land use map. And the future land use map is the part of the comprehensive plan which actually has teeth that people actually are supposed to adhere to. Under the law of Delaware, the future land use map has the force of law. That is what the code says, the Delaware Code. In order to develop this land, an amendment to our future land use map must be approved by county council, which allows them to say, this land has now been moved from the way we wanted to treat it in 2018 to a growth area, to the coastal zone. Or we're going to actually extend the boundary of the coastal zone outward to incorporate it. We believe it still should be treated as a low density area. The state still agrees with us on that. So does the federal government. In 2020, when the census was taken, this was treated as a rural area. So the federal government, the state government, the 2 objective authorities, they don't have a dog in this fight. They're not going to be making enormous profits out of what it's called. They don't have an economic interest in the land. And in the case of the state, they've used more than 30 different objective indicators to categorize the lands around the county. They both agree objectively that this land should not be developed. So we don't believe that the developer's attorney is correct, and we think that we can make a convincing argument to that effect. The owners of that property in November of 2017 tried to make the same argument. They said, this ought to be a growth area. Extend the coastal area all the way out to include our property. It was rejected by the county council in 2017. It should be rejected by the county council now in 2025. And that is our argument. And we have a justification for that. This time around, our team includes 2 lawyers. And so we are, in fact, working with the benefit of both the logic and the analysis of Delaware Code, of county ordinances, and we believe that we have a good case that we will be making. All of this is going to be done on November the 4th, next Tuesday, at the Sussex County Council chambers in the administration building on the Circle in Georgetown. The hearing will begin at noon on the public hearing on this matter. County Council will be having other business earlier, probably starting around 10 o'clock. And we are going to be arriving early. And let me just say a little bit about that. At the public hearing for the Planning and Zoning Commission, The developer made sure that they mobilized a significant number of people to be there. They arrived and occupied most of the seats in the council chambers. And so most of our supporters ended up being in an annex room, not in the county chambers itself, not in the council chambers. The Freeman Corporation, which is behind this development, is a pretty large business, stretching from Bethany down to Fenwick, the Fenwick area. Looking at the people who were there, their ages, talking to some of them before the meeting began, before the hearing began, it seemed to us pretty obvious that a number of them were Freeman employees who had the day off to engage in their civic duty. And their civic duty was to do what Freeman wanted them to do, right? To be there. There also were some other supporters. The YMCA, for example, is extremely active on this matter. They would like to have another location. They've been looking for another location for several years now. And so there were other supporters as well. So I don't mean to suggest that no one thinks that this is a good idea. There are people out there who are advocates for this. We're going to arrive early. It's a way to get a seat. If you believe that this is something that you want to do, our suggestion is that you get there early enough that you would get a front row seat, at least in the chambers in that sense, to be able to kind of watch as things unfold live in front of you. It takes a little bit of time to park. It takes a bit of time to find your way in. You have to go through a metal detector and get there. We take snacks, water. It's going to be a long haul. Once the hearing starts, the attorney for the developer has an unlimited amount of time to present the case for the development. And some lawyers take more time than others. The one for this project is not as long-winded as some others have been that we have seen. And so, but it takes a while to play out. And then other supporters of the proposal get to speak, and there will be other supporters. Dr. Tam spoke at the last one. I expect him to be speaking at this one as well. Other people, a resident of Bayside, Americana Bayside, was there. Turns out she's also the manager of Freeman Stage, but she gave a testimonial to what wonderful people the Freemans are to work with. So that has to play out. And then the opponents, the opposition, anybody who wants to speak in opposition to the proposal. We have a team of 5 people. We will probably take between 45 minutes and an hour to do our presentation. I'll know more after Friday when we're going to do a run through on this to see exactly how long-winded we are as we do our presentation. Just to give you an idea, we've been working on the presentation for the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I mean, it's been a long time since we started. I'm looking at my colleagues who are part of the team. So we have worked on this and worked on this and worked on this. Nonetheless, it is a powerful signal that is sent if there are people in the room who are there because they care, other than us, and we're not giving you the day off. We're not paying you to be there. But you would be there because you care about the issue. You do not have to speak if you're present, but you are able to speak. You're able to say what this means to you. Why are you concerned? Why is this something of major importance to you? And so part of my job this evening will be to remind you about some of those things. This might not be the last step in the saga, because back in March of 2024, we were at a point where the state said, wait a minute, we object to this proposal. And that led to the Office of State Planning Coordination officially objecting, sending a letter officially objecting to the county about the amendment to the future land use map. There then was a 30-day period of time when they were supposed to discuss their differences. My understanding is there was no discussion until day 29. And what eventually emerged was a memo of understanding about how they would move forward, that the county would have the opportunity to finish its collection of information and data by holding the public hearings that were associated with the application. Those public hearings would then inform council about whether they wished to move forward further with the amendment. If council decided, nah, we're not going to move forward, there are good arguments against, everything stops at that point. If, on the other hand, the county informally, because they're not supposed to take a vote yet, if they informally decide, yeah, let's move ahead, then they have to go speak with the state again, with the Office of State Planning Coordination and the group that supervises that office in state government, which is called the Cabinet Committee on State Planning Issues, I believe that's the name of it. I've been attending their meetings this year. I'm the only member of the public who attends live. There are people that can Zoom and people who do Zoom, but I've been kind of haunting their meetings. Our goal is really to convince the council that there's no reason to take that next step, and that there are good reasons to stop this at this point. So what does it consist of? There are 4 applications. The one I've been talking about is the amendment of the future land use map. There's one to rezone the land from AR1, which is what 49% of the county is AR1, which is called agricultural residential. It can be farmed or you can build houses on it. And to rezone that from AR1 to MRRPC, Residential Planned Community is what RPC stands for. MR is medium residential. So that's, I guess, the density, medium residential. And then there are 2 conditional use applications, one for an assisted living facility and one for a conditional use of an educational facility, a junior college facility, we believe. The most important of those is the one that's bolded. It's the amendment to the future land use map. If that amendment is not supported, then the other amendments are moot. They can't move forward with the other ones. So we've been focusing particularly on that future land use map proposal. Our view is that this is not really an amendment. This is a rewrite of the comprehensive plan. Jim Dick, a member of our team, has done a very close analysis of all of the other precedents during this period of time with this comprehensive plan where amendments to the future land use map have been sought. Only 2 have been successfully approved by the council. They average 1.75 acres in size, where they move from a lower density to a higher density allowed, all right? Only those 2. Coolspring is 637 acres. That's more than 300 times larger than the only 2 that have been accepted that are similar. This is a gigantic amendment compared to everything that's come before, right? This amendment, it doesn't deserve to be called an amendment, right? That's why I say it's a rewrite. They're fundamentally changing the future land use map, is the proposal. We have other developments going on that say the best way forward is to wait. Wait. Don't act on this. The Land Use Reform Working Group that Joe Hicks served on as a representative of SPC has made 20 recommendations. Those recommendations were made at the end of August, is that correct? Beginning of September, August 21st. They're still lingering out there. We're not sure about the future of how those are going to be processed. We don't know what the next step is with those 20 recommendations. And yet we've spent several $100,000 in this process of generating these recommendations. It makes no sense to throw those recommendations aside and move forward when the very first recommendation is align what the county does with what the state is supporting. First recommendation, align state policies and county policies. And this clearly breaks that, right? Because the county is contemplating rejecting the state's objection. Secondly, we have a new comprehensive plan that is due in 2028. The comprehensive plan is going to be a 20-month-long opportunity for the council to listen to the public, to hear what we think the future of the county should be, where there should be growth, where there shouldn't be growth, how much growth, what the intensity of that should be. All of those policies are kind of up for grabs with the comprehensive plan process, which will start in 2026. We know that that will start in 2026. Those discussions, and now the question is whether they should be started sooner rather than later. Mid-2026 has been kind of the general target. There's now some discussion, shouldn't it be earlier, as early as possible in 2026? Finally, DelDOT is undertaking a study of Route 9, and as you will see, Route 9 is one of the central issues about this. And that corridor study for a corridor of Route 9 is roughly targeted to have a report come out in the middle of 2026. Again, an important piece of information. You need to know what the long-range planning for that highway would be. The county council can say no to the amendment. They have a tremendous amount of discretion on this issue. It is not hemmed in. It's not hemmed in by a set of clear guidelines that would be violated if they said no. So they have discretion to say no. Our position is they should say no, not now, but it's an open question about what the outcome will be for that piece of land under the new comprehensive plan, right? Which is just around the corner. So perhaps it would remain AR1 or a non-growth area, or perhaps it would become a growth area. But now is not the time to make that decision. So this is a sensitive location, as I've referred to it. It's a major arterial highway that runs east and west. We don't have a whole lot of them in Sussex. It's about 4.5 miles from Lewis, about 8 miles from Georgetown, and about 5 miles from Milton. Is that correct, Mayor? About 5? 3, he tells me. I guess the newly annexed land in Milton has kind of moved that boundary a little bit southward, 3 miles. Route 9 is an important evacuation route. Route 9 is already very heavily traveled. It's also an important route for emergency vehicles, for ambulance traffic, either coming into Lewis or going to the new Bay Health facility that's located there. To give you some idea about the location, it's the left circular area, triangle area, has a small arrow that I pointed to it. That's where Coolspring Crossing is located. The other area that I outlined in red is North Star. And North Star is the big development that was approved recently right across from the vineyards. North Star and Coolspring together would have a major impact on the traffic on Route 9. And I'll return to that in just a minute. This is an outline of the proposed development. In the front side, the lower left, as you're facing it, on the lower left side there of the diagram is the non-residential part of Coolspring. 451,000 square feet of YMCA and a hotel, but also of commercial. So a convenience store, a supermarket, shops, restaurants, offices, medical offices. So the entrance would be directly off of Route 9. As we've tried to calculate it, it looks like about certainly 50%, probably 60% of the traffic that is generated by Coolspring will be as a result of that area, of that commercial area. So it directly will enter and exit from US 9. The remainder is residential, and there are to be 1,922 residential units. Not all of them are single-family homes. There are going to be duplexes and townhomes, and I believe there's an area that there are going to be kind of multifamily apartment units available as well. When it's all said and done, it will have a population of around 5,000, somewhere between 4,500 and 5,500. The prior consultants that are no longer working on the project had projected 5,624. So that's where we came up with that very precise number. That was from the first consultants who are no longer working on the project, mainly maybe because their numbers were high, I don't know. But the new consultant has never told us what the number will be. You have to kind of work it out. And when I tried to do that, it came out to about 4,500. So we're saying 5,000 is a pretty good working number. That would make it the fourth largest town in Sussex if that were the population tomorrow, right? Now, between now and 20 years from now, 2045, which is roughly what the developer says, it's going to take maybe 20 years for this development to be completed. The other towns will grow too. But if you look at their size, Laurel is the next one on the list. Milton's growing fast, I must say, but Laurel is the next one on the list. And in all likelihood, it would be fourth or fifth, okay, on the list, this new Coolspring, but it is not an incorporated town. It will have 6 HOAs to govern the 5,000 people living there. HOAs are highly efficient units. And if you got 6 of them, it must be 6 times more efficient than having a town, right? I say that obviously tongue in cheek. My experience with HOAs is that they are very mixed, right? It depends on the quality of the people that you are able to cajole to serve in leadership positions. And sometimes you have high quality people and sometimes you don't. And, but to have 6 of them trying to then figure out how do we work together in this community would be interesting. I'm a political scientist. I could make another career out of studying how that would play out, right? 6 different ones. The town, our point is the town, this is a large collection of people, not in a town. Therefore, it will not have a police department. It will not have a fire department. It will not have a coherent voice. It will not have a coherent government in all likelihood. So it's 637 acres, midway, not quite midway between Lewis and Georgetown. 4 times this has been rejected by the state, starting in 2021. The developer is the one who has decided where, what, and when. Not the county officials, not the people of Sussex through the vehicle of the comprehensive plan. This is a reflection of the idea that the developer has presented, and it's really up to us to decide if this is something that we want. And the vehicle to do that is to encourage the council not to approve the amendment. Traffic on Route 9. The traffic impact study that was done for this projects 33,359 vehicles per day. 33,359 vehicle trips per day, I should say. I should make that clear. Vehicle trips per day. Currently, at the Hudson Road intersection, which is where the Bay Health facility is located, it's 3,200 vehicle trips per day. At the Sweetbriar US 9 intersection, it is around 3,900 vehicle trips per day. It will basically be 10 times the vehicle trips and those in that area. Okay. That's not the worst part of the story. The worst part of the story is when you look at other growth happening along Route 9, and I highlighted before North Star, which is the one to the furthest east, which has the first circle to the right, on the right. The second circle is Coolspring. The third one is Four Corners. The fourth one is Azalea Woods. Cumulatively, those four projects would add 4,300 additional units, residential units, and the projection is around 60,000 vehicle trips per day. It's our contention that that's too much. I don't think that's a radical conclusion. All of those are projects that have been approved or that are in the pipeline for approval. I'm not a betting man, but if I were going to bet on whether projects in the pipeline get approved or not approved, it's not a flip of the coin in Sussex County, especially if it's an AR1. It's not a flip of the coin, 50-50. The probability of approval is quite high in Sussex County. One of the reasons that we are pushing for change in this county. So, is this likely? Yes. Unless steps are taken to try to slow that process down. And the best place to slow it down is Coolspring, because it requires the amendment to the future land use map, which they can say no to without legal ramifications. Right? Council is very concerned about being sued by developers. And developers' pockets are deep enough that they can fight those battles easily. Coolspring is the place to make a real impact on that picture. You take away more than half of the daily vehicle trips by that one. It is countywide, thanks to the work of Allison White, who is sitting here in the audience today. We know roughly what the pipeline in Sussex County looks like. And in Sussex County, already approved or pending approval, but in the pipeline, applications pending, are 14,000 residential units. Roughly 2,000 are at Coolspring, the 1922. So that's included in that 14,000 number. The projection is that those projects would probably add 33,000 people to the population. And Allison has had to go through an awful lot of detail to come up with that projection, with that estimate, that analysis. It's more than an estimate. And she will be presenting that to the council soon. So we know there's lots of growth on the way. We need to figure out ways to do it smarter than we've done it in the past. A smart step in this case is not to move forward with Coolspring. I'm all choked up over that. So some of this is just kind of additional detail. Some of that data was not taken into consideration by the traffic impact study. So for example, North Star was not included in evaluating what would be the traffic impact on 9. We also believe that it's an obligation of council to look at the cumulative effect of the problems that growth is creating, that approvals are creating. Don't look exclusively case by case by case. Look at the big picture, the cumulative effect. And that is actually spelled out in Delaware code. Another one of the advantages of working with the lawyers who've been working with us. Traffic is probably the easiest one to deal with, to talk about. It's the one that we all hate, the one that we're all most concerned about. It also has an impact on schools. There will be somewhere between 450 and 550 additional students when Coolspring is built out. They got to go somewhere. We are trying, I should say, the county is trying to figure out a way to generate additional funds for classroom construction. They've been talking about it for about 6 months now. It hasn't gotten done. Mañana seems to be the guideline for getting things finished and completed. Mañana, mañana, mañana. And at some point, I think we can be hopeful. At this point, the Cape Henlopen School District has asked, please don't add additional burdens to the schools. We are already at capacity. Don't approve additional projects. Fire, emergency, police, all of them, because they are not included in a town, have to come from somewhere. They're going to come from Milton. They're going to come from Lewis. The impact of this project is going to be significant on surrounding areas. The developer has said we will compensate the volunteer fire departments with funding. I'm not sure that that's adequate, and no one has documented that it's enough, that it makes a difference. And that just passes along the problem to the volunteer fire departments. You figure out how you're going to use money in order to meet these needs. Medical services. We all have had the experience of trying to get an appointment with a specialist. Things are tough here. The ratios of the number of patients to the number of providers are very high, the highest in the state. Dentists is the worst. 4,500 people per dentist in Sussex. I mean, imagine. It's about 1,500, if my memory serves me correctly, of patients to dentists in Newcastle County. Just to give you some idea of the difference within the state. We don't have a plan that I know of. Dr. Tam, however, is going to argue in favor of this development because he feels he needs the additional housing closer to the work facilities for nurses, staff, and practitioners, right? And so his argument is based largely on housing need in the area.
Attention, the library will be closing in 15 minutes. Please bring any materials to the circulation desk checked out. Thank you.
Sussex doesn't have an adequate public facilities ordinance. We do not have a requirement that it be documented that we can handle additional residents. It's one of our weaknesses. It is supposedly a forbidden term. The last time someone attempted to propose one, she was told, put that in your bottom drawer and shut the door, right? The last time it was to be introduced. It is not something that the powers that be have been willing to discuss. Newcastle County, in contrast, has a rather rigorous capacity analysis, which is required of all new proposals. It's an area that personally I believe that the working group, the land use reform working group, was remiss in not addressing the need for some sort of an adequate public facilities ordinance and to address capacity. It's a big gap in those proposals. Here are the, this is just a little bit more detail about students, emergency services. We know as it already stands that both Milton and Lewis are feeling the pinch of additional demands placed upon them, both for fire and police calls. I've been told that by authorities in Milton, and in Lewis, there is a monthly report of fire calls. Most of the fire calls that the Lewis Volunteer Fire Department responds to are outside of Lewis proper. But of course, Lewis extends way out somewhere west. Overall, the medical services is a huge challenge. It doesn't make sense to me that if the county is catching up in all of these areas, why would you make the challenge greater? Right? We're in the process of trying to figure out what to do about the schools. There have been discussions about the volunteer fire departments. No clear proposals that I'm aware of that have been made about how to solve it. The medical care, everybody talks about it. I haven't seen a plan yet. Why make the problem even greater when you don't already have a handle on it and are making progress in solving it? So I believe that Coolspring will make these problems worse. Developers can't solve them, so developers don't like to be criticized because of this. They only want to be able to, they're willing to be criticized about the things that they could address, not the things that they can address. Council, however, council does not build the schools. It does indirectly determine whether the classrooms are overcrowded. Council does not hire doctors or build medical facilities. It does indirectly determine whether those facilities are overcrowded and whether the waiting rooms are overcrowded. Council does play a role in this with their decisions. And it's important for council to get that message, especially on a development that they can do something about and which will have such a huge impact if it does move forward. In the back of everyone's mind is Plan B. Plan A by the developer is, I want to build this big commercial area that also has a combined residential area. People will be able to walk to get what they need. They'll be able to bike from their homes and go shopping, and they can go to the restaurant, and they can go to cultural events. It's going to be this wonderful, future, awesome place to live. Plan B, they say, if we don't get what we want, will be that we will build a development of 1,260 homes that are permitted under AR1 zoning, single-family homes. The critics of that say, well, that's just more sprawl, and we don't like sprawl, and we're fighting sprawl. We're trying to do something about it here in Sussex. The advantage of the Plan B is, among other things, you only get 12,600 vehicle trips per day instead of 33,000 vehicle trips per day. That sounds a lot better to me. You also don't get as much stress on the schools, the fire, the police, the medical services, or on evacuation plans, evacuation route. So it sounds to me as though Plan B might be possibly the better plan. Yes, ma'am. All I can say is that 12.6 is the number that was entered on the application by the developer for Plan B. That was their estimate. Right. And the same thing jumped out at me, right? We've just added a zero there. Yeah, it might. Yeah. The vehicle trips were estimated by a traffic consultant for Plan A. I'm not sure who estimated the vehicle trips for Plan B. I don't think a separate TIS was done for Plan B. But this was the number that was on their application. So I'm simply telling you what they told us. Yeah. There is a guideline, but I'm quite honestly, it depends on the type of housing, number of people per house, which is now estimated at 2.38. Is that correct? And sometimes it's the age of the people who are going to be there. That's all right. It's a good question. Same thing occurred to me. Why is that symmetry there? So the message, our message to the council is make the better choice. Now, we don't know that the developer will follow through with Plan B. The developer is using it as a mechanism to put pressure on county officials. It's pretty obvious, right? Just to remind you, we can do this if you don't let us do that. And to demonstrate that, we're going to put the application in. So they actually have a second application in for Plan B that has already been reviewed by the state committee that reviews these applications. So would they actually do that? I don't know. Would they be willing to wait 2 years until the comprehensive plan is done? I don't know. They say we've already waited 4.5 years and that's long enough. Some people believe that any length of time is not too long because of the size and location and the timing of this development. So I think as you think about this stuff, give this some reflection. So what we've given you is a handout. You could have picked up at the table on your way in. I think some people I know got in without the handout. It gives some suggestions on arguments that you can make. Instead of frequently asked questions, we have frequently heard justifications for Coolspring, some of the arguments for and some of the possible arguments against. Again, it's on November the 4th. I wanted to, the highlighted date here is not a mistake. I want you to remember that November the 4th, 2024 was the general election that returned a new majority to county council. It was a majority whose members, the candidates, ran in part on concerns about growth and development. They didn't have the same platform, but they had platforms that intersected, that are similar. So a great irony, 1 year to the date, 365 days after that election, they're going to have the chance to hear this case for what we believe is a classic example of what's wrong with development decisions in Sussex. They're developer-driven. They're not guided consistently by the public through the council and the commission. The Land Use Reform Working Group identified a number of things that should be changed, several of which I've identified, at least 6, would be inconsistent with approval of Coolspring. We need to kind of push the change agenda forward. 2024 was a change election. 3 of the incumbents, all of the incumbents who were running, lost. 2 of them in primaries, 1 in a general election. People don't like the way things are going. They want change. What better way to signal change than to not approve this and to behave more responsibly as we move forward on the land use decisions. I'm going to lose my voice in a minute. But we have, fortunately, several members of our group who are working on this who can also help me answer questions. So here are the details that it's going to appear in a Cape Gazette advertisement. You're the first to see it. It's not hot off the press. It's not even in the press yet, but this will appear on Friday. Yes. Yes, because it's the planning and zoning website, right?
Yeah.
Yes, the question is that the notice says submit comments to P&Z, and even though it's the county council that is going to be hearing this public hearing and answering and receiving the comments, hopefully reading them all, although there are hundreds there, you still have to submit them through the planning and zoning staff. All right, I've been talking for a long time. Let's see what questions we've got, and Joe, you can help me as well. We're going to bring a microphone to you so people online can hear.
My question is very simple. You said we should get there early, and it also says noon. So is noon getting there early, or do you want us there before noon?
Before noon.
Okay, do they take a lunch break at all?
Typically, they take a brief one for the convenience of the council. And so it's tough for you to go out and get something to eat. And you can't reserve your seat and come back to the same seat you were in before.
Okay.
So
Just stay in your seat. Or
I think if you got there 11:15, was that what you would say? I think you'll be all right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if you want to, as I said, a front row seat in the council chambers to see all the drama unfold. Yep. Go ahead.
So we will also have these labels that you can put on, and that way council will see how many of us are there. And you can, that we have them out on the table, you can pick them up on the way out, but we will also be there around 11 handing them out.
Should we submit letters to the members of the council? As opposed to sending it to P and Z staff? Two different things.
I would send it to both. And I would send it to all members of council, not just one.
I mean, I wasn't trying to be smart or critical of council members, but there are hundreds of letters. And if you send it only to the P and Z posting, then it may just become one of the hundreds. If you also send it two places, to the main posting location and to the individual council member, I think they're more likely to read it. It'll come in their inbox, right?
Yeah, as a former DOT engineer, retired, I was noticing your counts here for your average daily traffic, and that's probably just an average, so it's probably going to be a lot higher than the number that's on there. As well as being a Lewis firefighter and fire police guy, our calls have gone up 48% just on EMS calls alone, and that's not including the fire calls. So it's staggering to hear these numbers and us try and keep up as we do best, keeping up with the calls that we go on. But also, I'm just wondering, totally blown away by this traffic impact study that hasn't even been completed yet. And how can they go forward without having that completed? That's my question. And that would be the biggest question, that the county should say, no, there's no traffic impact study, so it shouldn't go forward.
Right. Well, they did a traffic impact study. The data were collected in, I think, 24 and was fairly early. It was supposed to have been updated. And the rule that they follow is that if a development has not been approved, we can't count it, right? If it's just on the books. Now, as I've suggested, an awful lot of the proposed developments are approved in Sussex. It's just, you know, I've never looked at a percentage, but it's got to be well over 60%, 70% get approved. And so if you can't count it until it's finalized, you're missing an awful lot of traffic. And I think you've confirmed that.
I have a gentleman here, and thank you for what you do. Thank you.
Yeah. My question is pretty mechanical to begin with, although I would like to say it would be wonderful should someone with experience in your field testify. It will make a huge difference. But my question is more mechanical. You mentioned that other business is going to be done November 4th in the morning. Is any of that business of anything remotely like the sort of implication of this, so that you might indeed have all sorts of people from the public coming in the morning as well, earlier?
So Belmead is going to have a potential decision,
Potentially, yeah.
I mean, sometimes it shows up on the agenda and then isn't actually acted upon. Yeah. So most of that delay has happened, has unfolded.
With Judy Rose, who has done so much work on Belmead, to determine whether she's trying to bring out a large crowd in the morning, because if that's the case, we can really sort of stack the major meeting room of the council, and other people have to go to ancillary places. But if it's not going to be decided, then it's not so important. And both things bear upon whether you get there, God help us, at 9 in the morning or at 11.
It would make a difference. Where were you there at 8:30 this morning when I was on the phone with her? I needed to ask her that question then, right? Yeah, I will check. I'll check with Judy Rose.
I'm pretty new to the area. I've only been here for a few years. I live on Coolspring Road, and I've gotten a little bit involved with North Star Atlantic Fields last week, where I Zoomed for the entire time, sent a letter. And something in my letter, and I could be totally off about this, is I understand all of this is going on, but what I wrote my letter about was really about taxes. And the money that these people, I think, because they call this a no-tax state, I'm really curious about the percentage of money that is being made by building this to bring money into the county. I could be completely wrong with this, but I'm sitting there going, there's a deeper place besides the chaos that's being created. What's happening everywhere is that it's a deflection of really what may be happening. And so I'm sitting there going, this tax thing is really, because I hear they make more money on commercial and residential. Yes, and also because right down the street from me, I live close to Stockley and Coolspring. They're building a 260 housing development right at that corner. It's been approved. I don't know if they found the builder yet, but the development has been approved. So that's not even on there, you know? So I was just, you know, I'm just throwing it out there because I'm new, but I'm thinking there's a deeper issue of what and who is getting the money and the benefits of this mass amount of building.
Right. I will let Jill answer the question about taxes. I will, however, point out the whole future of that Route 9 corridor. Just as you point out, there are lots of developments that are either in the pipeline or contemplated dreams of landowners along that corridor. And I think one of the key questions is whether the council can have the discipline to look at that entire corridor as a unit. What do we want it to look like? Do we want it to be another Route 1 with lots of commercial units all the way along the way? Do we want it to be something other than that? And if commercial, then should it be designed in a way that makes it more attractive than it otherwise might be? So that entire corridor is going to be explosive, potentially explosive as a residential area. And it's my view that Coolspring would basically stamp the area and say, this is now open game. This is now open land. The land rush has begun. Let's figure out what we're going to do here. And it's every man for himself, every developer. I shouldn't say every man because Freeman is headed by a woman. And so, yeah, but you get the idea. So it's every developer for him or herself. Did you want to answer about the real estate transfer taxes?
And also, just to add to a comment that's been made too, is that developments usually almost always get approved in Sussex County because they're considered by right. They are approved by the, if it's a subdivision, it's approved by planning and zoning, which follows the land use codes or the regulations. And so all they have to do is meet those codes and they get approved, because otherwise they'll sue and they'll win because I personally have appealed And they'll win because they met the code. The problem is the code is very relaxed. We do not have the protections here in Sussex County that they have in the other two counties of the state, that they have in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland. We're very, very relaxed in our land use code. So it's very easy for them to get these subdivisions approved. The other thing about the taxes is that when you bought your house, you and/or the owner paid a 4% transfer tax. 2.5% of that transfer tax goes to the state, and it's part of their budget. It's not a large part, but they do get 2.5%. The county gets 1.5% of that, and it is the largest income bucket in the county. So that kind of answers your question. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a $200 million fund.
Yeah.
Now,
Okay, I promised Johannes, and I think there was a question over here.
Hi, thanks, Jill. I'm going to give my own opinion. So sociologically, politically, I come from upstate New York, which is upstate New York. There's a lot of faith in the value and virtue of commerce, right? Let commerce run and the benefits spread. They don't just trickle down, they spread out. And that, in my perception, is an obstacle to regulating in the public interest and the collective interest. The markets will take care of it. Yeah, not all the time. If I might, just very briefly, speak to the the management of traffic demand. So in the case, I had the good privilege of working with these folks on the traffic analysis for planning and zoning. Coolspring did their first TIS traffic impact study in 2022. They had to update it in 24. North Star wasn't in the universe yet at that time, just as you mentioned. So the rule is, if the development isn't there when we did the TIS, hey, we followed the rules, right? And it becomes, and this is again my opinion, just my personal opinion, not speaking for SPC. In my assessment, my view of it, everyone says it's like Bugs Bunny. Wasn't me. You know, you point over to somebody else somewhere, right? And where that really gets really problematic is the developers say, okay, well, we're going to have these intersections, we're going to improve them, and then things will be good. And they don't give a lot of attention to the total volume that's contributed to the road network. They say, oh, at my intersection to my development, we're going to put in a turn lane, and that'll reduce accidents, right? And DelDOT's happy because their first mission is safety. If they can say we made improvements that support safety, then we're good. Remember that the state of Delaware maintains almost all the roads in the state. However, land use decisions are the privilege of county government. So you have a built-in imbalance where the county is making decisions about what to build and then telling the state, hey, how about the money? And the state says, well, we don't have the money. We didn't plan to do that. And so there's back and forth, and I'm oversimplifying, but in the end, the county makes decisions to take it on faith that the work will get done. Somehow it'll get handled. Not so smart. My last request to any of you, Jill, Joe, you may have chosen not to talk about affordable housing, but unless you don't want to cover that today, affordable housing is sort of the candy that's being offered by the developers, and yet only 10% of the units in several developments, including this one, are formally affordable. So I don't know if you want to speak to affordable housing tonight. I think it'd be interesting. If you want to leave that for another time.
let's see what other questions we've got.
Okay, let me, I'll get to you, Sue Claire, in a second. Got one over here. She's been waiting patiently.
I just have like a visual question. when I look at the drawing of how the layout's going to go on Coolspring, I don't have any sense of like, is that a half a mile long or is it 3/4 of a mile or 2 miles? How far is it from tip to tip? Or if you walked from one corner around the buildings to get to the other side? Like they're talking about walkability and stuff, and I'm not really seeing it, but except on the one upper hand corner.
Right, I honestly don't know. Do you have any idea, since you live nearby, what the distance would be?
Yeah. Yes. The size of the site is a square mile. Yeah, it's a square mile around that site, but you're right, you should drive it. It's huge.
Right, so it may not be as convenient supposedly to walk as they're making it out to be, is what you're arguing. Right,
When you stand down here at the health center, you cannot see the other side of it. That's how vast it is. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, you really should if you get the opportunity to drive around it, but it's a square mile around it. Sue Claire had a question. And then I'll come back.
Thanks, Jill. Two questions for seeking clarification. I can't tell from the map how many, are there more than one entrance and egress? Are there two entrances and egresses along Hudson Road? Or is that a cul-de-sac at the end of it?
yeah, these are entrances. There's only one entrance off of Route 9, and it will be signalized, so there will be a light there, so that people can exit in either direction easily.
The reason I raised it, I was wondering if they were going to, their intention, or whether it's been announced, that they were going to build the road to state specifications so that the state would have to maintain the roads, but that was just a question that came to mind. And the second question is, did I understand you to say the developer stated it would take up to 20 years to fully develop it?
Correct.
Okay, then it struck with them, the phrase that you, the initial heading, too much too soon, should not be stressed, since the developer is going to say, well, it's not going to be,
Right, for that long.
yeah. That's just a point of,
That is their, and they're very quick to make the point. So for example, when I show the size of it relative to other towns, they're very, very quick to say, but that's 20 years away, right? And it's not tomorrow. The same thing is true for the roads. They'll say, they're not going to be 33,000 cars tomorrow, right? So their argument in a sense is that over time, many of these problems that we're pointing out are going to disappear. Someone, someplace will have some money, enough money to fix all these problems,
yes.
right? And so don't worry about them. They will go away. The market will fix it. The DelDOT will build the roads. I'm constantly reminded, we live here near Kings Highway. The conversation about improving Kings Highway started in 2006. No construction is now anticipated until 2030 at the earliest, at the very earliest, and it's likely to be later. The Millsboro bypass, they started talking about it in 2001. This year it opened. So it takes a long time to complete these projects.
I was just pointing that out, that not to downplay the comment too much too soon, because they would counteract that it'll take 20 years.
That's actually my terminology. It's not one that we're using in our presentation.
Yeah, I also think that this developer has a reputation of expanding, expanding, expanding. So, and if you look around this site, there's a lot of other farmland around it. So who knows if it will really come to completion in 20 years.
Some of which they own, I believe.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Who else had their hand up that I was supposed to
This
catch?
gentleman here has his hand up.
A comment and then a question. So to your question about 20 years, we live in Bayside. It took 20 years. And that Route 54 is a train wreck. Yeah, I mean, it's the Long Island Expressway times 10, right? It is so bad over there because I think to your point, you can't look at it at a case by case basis. You have to look at the cumulative effect of what land is available to be sold, what has already been in the pipeline, what is already there. Collectively, the cumulative effect of all of that is extremely destructive. And so the idea of, the state and the county wanting to get the transfer tax, I mean, it's like a Ponzi scheme, right? You're getting money now, right? Because you need the revenue now, but you don't bank on what is the long-term effect of the cost of the exploding population and the need to develop the infrastructure, which is going to cost billions of dollars, which can only mean higher taxes and all the other things that none of us really want to see. So that's my comment. My question to you is, you talk about this guy Fuqua talking, till the cows come home. Is this the first time the county council has heard from Fuqua on this thing? Or is this really just kind of a bullshit show, right? Because the county council is not going to be the first time they've heard about Cool Springs. It's not the first time I'm sure they've heard from the developer on the merits of Cool Spring. It's not the first time they've heard people pushing back on Cool Spring. What's the real value of this hearing? It can't be new news to the county council because they must have heard it all over it.
I'm confident that they've heard a lot about it. And so you're right there. On the other hand, they haven't heard it all logically put out in a coherent fashion. They pick up bits and pieces. If they've been doing their homework, they've had a notebook that had an enormous amount of material in it. They could access everything online, but to be fair, they've got lots of other business coming at them. And so this is their opportunity to focus. Correct. Unless they tuned in to the planning and zoning hearing, there's no reason that they would have done that. Because planning and zoning should have been that's a preliminary preparation that they sort through everything and then they make a recommendation. So as a member of council, I probably wouldn't have done that if I had been in her shoes. I would have waited until it came to me, and then you hear it de novo. You hear all of the evidence again. Everything has to be presented to you from square one. And in part, this is when the lawyer earns his money, right? Fuqua is very experienced. He's persuasive in a friendly kind of way. He's not intimidating. He is well-known, right, in the county. And so this is his opportunity to unleash his skills and earn his money. Not to them, not to the council. Right.
So I think also too, and Jim and Jack can help me with this as well, is that this also provides a record that aside from everything that's been written, this provides a record of this application. And should the public or the developer decide to appeal the decision that they made, it's all recorded in this one setting. And
That's the important part of this. Well, you can't hear me?
so the
No,
people,
it's-
online can hear.
It's, yeah, it is a hearing on the record, and the decision by the council has to be supported by evidence in the record. That's what this is really all about.
So that's why they need to be complete and thorough. And it's why we're going to try to be complete and thorough.
Speaks to the importance. So that just speaks to the importance of the attendance of the meeting, right? Because it
Right.
is for the record,
Correct,
right?
Correct.
Pro and con.
right?
I see.
Are there going to be limits on how long anybody can talk?
Typically, no. Yes,
Major presentations. At first, I wanted to applaud your efforts in the last case, which was superb, though in a lost cause, but the group presenting had a long and large presentation. They allow the developer to have this long presentation, and only, I think, because of your superb efforts on the last time, is council now aware that the public has a voice of its own that's going to be detailed. And so they give room for that large group presentations. But then they typically say, we don't want any repetitions, and you're allowed to speak for 3 minutes. And they do try to press you to finish off what you're saying within that time frame. I mean, people do exceed it. They're a little bit, free about letting that go on, but not for long. And it is a sort of limit. I did want to ask a question that's related to the issue that I think is a big issue, not only for this, but more comprehensively as well, which is this is precedent setting, as you have indicated in your presentation earlier, in that they have the right to make this decision now and reject it. But should it be approved, there's a mountain of legal liability thereafter for anybody else who wants to do these huge compressed developments that are involving 3 to 5 times as many people coming in, and the traffic and the problems that AR1 would. So in effect, in the past, if they got rejected for AR1, they took it to court and often won. So council was reluctant to limit virtually anything in AR1. This is what's going to happen with these huge things. And one of the things I'm wondering is why all of a sudden, in the name of no sprawl, are we now talking about developments that are going to be 4, 5, 6, 10 times larger than AR1s? And there are a number of these proposals.
One of the big faults in the current code is that AR1 cluster developments do not go to the council. They stop at planning and zoning. It was a major fault of the comprehensive plan. And I think most people who have looked at the current comprehensive plan realize that that is a major mistake, and something that hopefully will be changed in the next rendition. But you're right. And it's the AR1 alternative that causes much of the urban sprawl.
Sure, but I'm wondering about this. Something that isn't AR1, the difference is what, 12,000 versus 33,000 car trips? So how is that a benefit?
right,
We get these huge developments instead of AR1.
right.
I admit that AR1 should be reformed and could be in the next comp plan, but the answer to sprawl and AR1 is surely not this being a precedent-setting kind of thing, as would Belle Mead. On 40 acres, we could have, I live right across from Belle Mead. Belmead could have 80 houses on AR1, but it's going to have 380 on 4-story apartments. These apartments jammed together, about 6 of them on 40 acres. Now, how is that beneficial to the larger picture? I don't see it in any way, shape, or form as being even more disastrous. And if this is approved, this one, it's the precedent that allows developers to go to court and say, well, you approved Cool Springs, why not us?
Yeah, I do agree that this is likely to be the first of more. And I think the developers will do the same thing. They will go into AR1 areas, which is where you get cheaper land of the amounts that you need for a master plan community, as they call it. And so you could only find it in those areas outside of the growth zone where the land is much more expensive per acre. And that's not desirable, in my opinion either. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. Jill, did you want to demonstrate how you actually go online and
I
file
can do that.
something? We're running out of time here.
Yeah, it is 8:30. For anyone who wants to see, I can do a quick demonstration on how to send your comment in outside of P and Z. And, but
Ah,
yeah, you know, maybe before y'all leave, I do want to make a quick, I just want to thank Joe Pica for heading up this effort. He has done a tremendous amount of work. I want to thank Jack Young and Jim Dick for we just couldn't do it without you. You guys have been so helpful to us in all these legal matters, not just this one, but others. And I just really want to thank you because we wouldn't be able to get through this without you. Yeah, wait till we see the bill. I want to thank Johannes Sayre. He has also been a member of our team working on Cool Spring Crossing. I want to thank Pam and Mary and Val. They've all been helping us with getting the publicity out. And Rich Barrasso, who's not here, he's also been very instrumental in doing a lot of this research work and getting this out. So I know Johannes has a quick message, and then I think we'll just call it a night. Yeah.
So, sorry, I'm the tail end of the dog. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Joe. So we've been running a petition online, and we have some copies here. It has, very handy, it has a QR code here. So if you would like to sign it, just come by the table here on the side and take a picture of the QR code, use the QR code, sign it right here. If you are motivated enough to carry this around your community, we have some of these. If you'd like to take it along, it is actually fairly easy to walk around with your device with the petition up in a browser and talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors and say, hey, you want to sign this petition? We have the petition text on one side and we have a little one-sheeter and the QR code on the other side. So if you're motivated, you can walk around your community, knock on doors and say, hey, if you don't think this is a great idea to plunk down a new town of 5,000 people, you can sign a petition against it, and we're going to deliver this after the main SPC presentation. Thank you so much.
okay, so we hope to see you next Tuesday. Bring your friends, bring your enemies, bring them all. Thank you all very much. Thanks for being here tonight.